What up? And welcome back to some more Downrange Gaming, son. And as you can see, I'm trying out the beta version of Battlefield 3. And first off, I want to talk about the game a little bit before I jump into boot camp experience, military stories. And the game, I'm going to compare it to Call of Duty, of course. And I just don't feel like the graphics, I don't know because it's beta, but the graphics aren't as good as Call of Duty. It's very disappointing to me. And it's really laggy. I guess this is all probably because it's beta. And obviously I'm not the best Battlefield 3 player. This is probably maybe my 10th match, I think. And I'm doing a little low crawling. And I've learned that military tactics are definitely important in this game. I just haven't figured out like how to coordinate my team. And with all the different things I saw, I had like a radio. I didn't know what I could do with that. Like I just got sniped. And definitely camping. You got to camp in this game. And I'm more of a like moving around type of player. So let's jump into this boot camp stories. And I think I left you guys off with me talking about some PT, which is physical training, and about the wall lockers and all that. Oh, and I also remember I said that if I got the video on the homepage, I would talk about my first marriage. Yes, first marriage. But you guys tried so hard and I appreciate it. It got tons of favorites, but it didn't make it on the homepage. So I guess I could give you a little piece of the marriage thing, but I'll save it now until I get to my first base within the storyline. But basically, I met a girl. She was from New Orleans. She made sure I said it right. And she was in the military too. And that's all I'm going to give you. So you're going to have to wait until I get through boot camp, tech school, and get to my first base. So back on the boot camp story. And I forgot something that I wanted to tell you about. It's something that happened like the first day that we were there. Well, we got there, we slept. Then the next day, when we got there, we had to do a lot of like introduction type of things. Like get shots was one of the things. And this was so sucky. Like they lined us up in this line. And we had to walk through what I wanted to call a gauntlet. And there was probably about, I might be totally wrong, but I know it was definitely more than 4 or 5, possibly even 6 people that were going to give you a shot. So you would walk through the people, and I don't know if you ever got a shot that's like a gun. It like they put on your arm. It's kind of like a little gun, and it gives you a needle, boom, and it gives you a shot. And we walked through, and it's just both shoulders, boom, getting shots, boom, getting shots. And then you got one more shot, like, on your tricep that hurt really bad. But it was, like, a ton of shots. I just thought that was, like, the suckiest thing. And I remember watching all the trainees go through it. I'm like, oh, shit. And they would just shoot you with, I want to say, 6 or 7 shots within 30 seconds. So if you're going to go to boot camp, be prepared to walk the gauntlet. And it's not very pleasant. So I also seen a lot of comments and you guys asking and wanting to know if I got in trouble at all at boot camp. And I actually didn't get in trouble at boot camp, like serious trouble. Like if you got in serious trouble at boot camp, they would send you back a couple weeks. So if you're like in week 5 and you get in trouble, they'll knock you back 3 weeks or something. But a couple trainees did get knocked back into our flight. And they got in trouble because they like snuck some kind of food from the chow hall. They snuck like some snacks or something, and they were like hiding them in like the ceiling in their dorm, and the TI caught them, and they sent them back a couple weeks. And it was funny because one of those trainees that got sent back, I think his name was, he was a Spanish guy. I think it was like Fernando or something. Fernando, I think that was his name. I can't believe I remember. But he was so weird. He actually, his bed was right next to mine, and I sleepwalk and stuff, but for some reason I didn't sleepwalk much at boot camp. But this kid, he like, I want to say they're called night terrors maybe, but he was right next to me. When he would fall asleep in the middle of the night, he would sit up and just start screaming like and then lay back down like nothing happened. I'm like, I get up, I'm like, what the hell is this dude's problem? Maybe like an hour later he'll pop up again sitting in his bed. Just imagine this. And he'd start screaming, Then he would start yelling, mommy, mommy, mommy. And I'm like, this kid is bananas. And I remember I asked my flight leader, like we would have flight leaders within the flight that were actually trainees, but the TI would appoint them kind of ahead. I'm like, look, can I change my bed? Because Fernando is nuts. I have a feeling he's going to kill me in my sleep or I'm not gonna get any sleep. But I just imagine some dude in the middle of the night popping up, sitting up, screaming, and I would tell him, I'd be like, "Yo, do you know you were like freaking out in the middle of the night?" He's like, "No, really? What was I doing?" I was like, "Dude, you're like sitting up screaming for like no reason." He's like, "Oh, sorry about that." So another thing I wanted to tell you guys about was the haircuts. I forgot to tell you about that. That's another thing. Like when we got the shots, we also got like haircuts that day. I actually went into boot camp with kind of like a shaved head already, so it wasn't a big deal to me. But like these other guys, I don't even understand like why they came in with the hairstyle that they did. Like they knew they were gonna cut their hair. But this one dude had like an afro, straight up. His name was Lopez. He had a straight up afro, and it was like they would sit us down. There was like 3 old guys, or like the barbers. They'd sit us down 3 at a time, and they would just zip our hair off, zip like a number 0 on clippers. If you know anything about cutting hair, they would just, and they were like painful. Like they didn't, if your hair was long, they were just ripping your hair out, boom, boom, and it was just sucky. And then like I think around week 7, your hair starts to grow back a little bit. And for getting so far in boot camp, they wanted to distinguish you from the other trainees, so they would give you a high and tight. And I don't know if you know what a high and tight is, but it's like a military haircut where the sides are like really short, and then you got like a really small type like mohawk on the top, almost like a mohawk, but it's just real shaved really tight on the top of your head. And the barbers didn't give a shit. They would jack it up. Like people's high and tights were all lopsided and retarded looking. I just remember getting my high and tight, and I was just so angry. And speaking of getting haircuts, it reminds me that I actually have video of it. While in boot camp, somebody would film different parts of boot camp, like the certain flight, and they would sell a VHS at the end of boot camp when you graduated, so you could actually watch pieces of boot camp. So I definitely got to go to my parents' house and find that and upload it on here so you guys can see. So I have a lot of pictures from when I graduated and some from tech school. So let me know in the comments if you want to see the pictures. I'm sure you do. I can maybe flash them in the video, but a lot of the pictures are from when I graduated, like you see me marching, and I got my BCGs on, and I look nerdy as hell, but it wasn't my choice. Like, so don't judge me when you see these pictures. So another thing I didn't really talk about was marching, and that was definitely one of the biggest things in boot camp, was learning how to march. And you'd march everywhere, and it was just annoying, but it was kind of funny because we had a main TI. His name was Sergeant Panting, but we had like a training TI, like he was training, and so he tagged along with Sergeant Panting. So Sergeant Panting would always call out the cadence, you know, like hut 1, 2, 3, all that crap. And so he would let the training TI try, you know, to call out the cadence. And like calling cadence, like you got to really speak from your diaphragm, and and have that deep voice. So you know, he was trying to do it, and his voice cracked real bad one time. He was like, huh, 1, 2, and then like we all just started busting out laughing at him. And it was almost kind of funny because our TI Sergeant Panting didn't like yell at us for it. He almost started laughing too, and he was like telling the dude, I remember, like, yo, you got to make sure you speak from your diaphragm, or you're gonna, you know, your voice is gonna sound like a little bitch. Now, a cool thing that we used to do when we used to march around, like we'd get up so early in the morning or whatever, like when we did PT, and our TI was funny. Like he liked to mess with people from other like flights or other parts of the base, because this base is over in Lackland Air Force Base. It's in San Antonio. And so there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of training, different things. Like, so there was like a hotel that was kind of close to our dorm. It was right in front of the parade field where we practiced marching. So it would be really early in the morning, and so there was people sleeping at a hotel that might not even be in the military, that are just staying on the base because for some reason doing some work or something. So he would get, you know, early in the morning, maybe like 5 a.m., we'd be on a parade field. He'd, you know, attend hut. Right, haste, and we'd face like the hotel, and he would scream, "What makes the grass grow?" And we'd yell, "Blood, blood, blood!" like really loud. It was probably a good 40 of us screaming on the top of our lungs, that, and it would echo like the whole base. He was like, he just wanted to wake up all the people in the hotel. And I don't know if you ever seen Full Metal Jacket, but he totally stole that from from Full Metal Jacket. What makes the grass grow? Blood, blood, blood. Whose blood? Their blood. Whose blood? Ah! So if you ever seen Full Metal Jacket, you would know where that came from. So another big comment I seen in the comment section was you guys want to know about weapons training. And in the United States Air Force boot camp, there wasn't much weapons training. I mean, things could have changed now. This was back in 2002. So things could have changed. But when I was there, all we did in boot camp was the M16A2. We took it apart, put it together, fired rounds downrange, stuff like that. I didn't get into firing all the weapons and throwing frags and all that until I got into tech school, which comes after boot camp. So whatever job you picked, like, to do in the military is after boot camps. And my job was security forces, which is basically a MP, military police. And I fired tons of different weapons and stuff. And I guess I'll get into all that weapons training once I get through the stories of boot camp. But as far as boot camp, we did fire the M16A2 assault rifle with, what was the rounds? 5.56. Well, we carried 5.56 NATO rounds. I don't know what we fired, but there was a story. Here's a story that a troop. Now this happened right before I got there, but the instructors were letting us know. So you gotta, like, they made sure we took the weapon apart a billion times, put it together, cleaned it before we went out there and fired it. And one of the tools you use, to clean weapons is like this toothbrush-looking tool. It almost looks like a toothbrush. So I think a piece of a toothbrush got lodged in the weapon somewhere, and the trainee went out in a range to fire it, and it was like jamming, and somehow it exploded. The weapon exploded in his face, and it exploded in the instructor's face because he was over there, and they were like harping on how dangerous this is, and they had like the actual weapon like on the wall, like what it looked like, and it looked like a banana peel, like it exploded. So that was something that was interesting. And if you fire guns for fun and don't know much about it, just make sure you don't keep a toothbrush stuck inside the bolt somewhere. Well, this match, Battlefield 3, goes on pretty long. I think I'm going to end the video at this note. So I really have one more thing to talk about with boot camp, would be Warrior Week. I'm definitely running out of stories trying to jog my memory of crazy stuff that happened. Every day I think of more stuff that I remember. So next week I definitely will talk about, or not next week, but next video, I'll talk about like the O course, the obstacle course, and Warrior Week, which Warrior Week was a week we stayed out in like tents, like the second to last week of boot camp. And then I'll definitely jump into security forces training, tech school, and I have a lot of cool stories from that. That was a lot more like infantry related type stuff, because security forces is basically infantry for the Air Force. We were the grunts. So that will be it for today. So make sure you give it a thumbs up, favorite, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe so you know every time I upload a new video you'll be notified. Oh, and I definitely will show you some of the pictures, I guess, when I get into graduation of boot camp, because that's pretty much what all the pictures are, is from graduation, as my family actually showed up for a graduation. So until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace!